but he had that one line. And if 98% of your apology, and I know we've all had to go through this in our own personal relationships, if 98% of your apology is well intended, but you slip that one line in there that might suggest that maybe it's not all your fault. Maybe it's your fault, not my fault. Then it kind of invalidates the entire thing. And Tua said, or however the media wants to portray it, said that some of his comments, Frank, might have been misconstrued, or however the media wants to portray it. There was nothing taken out of context. There was nothing misconstrued. I give Tua credit. He stepped up there and he owned it today. But that one line, honestly, for me, kind of made it worse. And I want to show him grace. I do think he's a good guy. I do think he's a good leader who's still trying to kind of find out how to be the bad cop as opposed to always being the good cop. I think he's always trying to be positive. He doesn't want to be the negative guy who gets in people's face. But that one line seemingly suggests you guys made this something it wasn't. And I don't know that that sounds good.
I rolled my eyes at that part, like everybody else. Like, okay, Tua, like we know what you said. It wasn't like some privately recorded conversation with a reporter. It was on a podium. Like we all know the context of it. Aside from that, I'm gonna go full contrarian on you because I'm gonna sit here and say I think Tua had a thing to apologize about. I've had a couple days to think about this, and really? First of all, the NFL media is weird. Anytime somebody says anything interesting or out of the box, we shame them until they feel bad about it and apologize and make sure they're never going to say anything interesting again. Tua is never going to say anything interesting again. That's a selfish thing. I want to put that to the side. Here's the thing. Tua came out after a game in which they went 1-5. They are 1-5. They're terrible. They're one of the three worst teams in football, clearly. And he basically called out his teammates for not doing more. What's the problem there? What exactly did Tua say wrong? And in this apology, the one thing he never said was, what I said was incorrect. No, he just said, I should have kept all this stuff in house. I shouldn't have made this public. I shouldn't have aired my guys out. Why not air your guys out? They're 1-5. You look like a Sunbelt team most weeks, all right? Maybe these guys do need to be shaken up. This is one of the softest organizations in the NFL. They're the team that ran off Vic Fangio because he was coaching them too hard. Vic Fangio goes on to win a Super Bowl, by the way. This is a team that after the season, Mike McDaniel says, I've tried finding guys for showing up late or not showing up at all to team meetings, and they just keep showing up late. There's no accountability at all in the Miami Dolphins. We talked about that a little bit on Monday. So what is wrong with Tua saying, you know what? I'm sick of these guys not showing up to this extra stuff. Other guys are showing up to the extra stuff because we want to get better. There are guys that just don't want to go that extra mile to get out of this 1-5 hole. They're fine being 1-5. But we have shamed Tua because all the former players who don't like to be criticized, players don't like to be criticized, newsflash, they came out and said Tua was so out of line, blah, blah, blah. You're 1-5. You stink. What's wrong with the quarterback going up there and saying, you know what? Things got to change. Guys have to be more accountable. I have no problem with it at all. I don't have any problem with Tua getting up there, speaking his mind, which he did. I have more of a problem with him backtracking because, all of a sudden he's the villain here. No, he's not the villain. Maybe the guys who are one of the worst three teams of football should be doing a little bit more. That's how I feel about it today. I think Tua didn't say anything out of line. We just have this weird pathology in NFL media to shame anybody who says anything interesting, and that's all Tua did. And now Tua won't say anything interesting anymore. I have no problem with what Tua said. I have more problem with the apology than what he said. Fine. Air out your guys because they're 1-5. Maybe they should get a little bit better.
All right. So
Frank's coming in hot.
I have so much to hold on. I have so much to come back at. No. But please get in here.
So I think a couple things. The first is that you can't, in Tua's apology, you can't say that it was misconstrued by the media. To Frank's point, this wasn't some unnamed source in an article somewhere. This was you on the podium responding to a question. I forget exactly what the question was, but relatively unprompted, you put this out there. So he opened the can of worms in that way. However, the media, quote unquote, misconstrues it. I think that's a little disingenuous. I think in terms of what he actually said, also, it just kind of brings up like are the inmates running the asylum, right? Mike McDaniel is a little bit known as a player's coach as well. Tua, obviously the quarterback, supposed to be the leader of the team. And some of what the message was a little unclear, right? It's like, are we having a players only meeting? Do I have to invite everyone? Does everyone know it's mandatory? It was just a very weird kind of message that is the antithesis of what you think of with well-run teams. And the one that always comes to mind is the New England Patriots, right? Under Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, notoriously very boring. And, to a fault, I would say, with the media, especially Belichick, but everything was handled in-house. If they had a players-only meeting, the media might not even know that they had a players-only meeting. So it was almost a weird kind of like cry for help for Tua, saying to the media publicly, like, hey, I'm trying everything as a leader. We're pulling the players-only card. We're doing that. But it was just a weird kind of mixed message. And I think as well, it's never good when you're talking about everything that isn't happening on the field. And that's just a function of, like Frank said, they're 1-5. They're a 2.5-point underdog this week at the Browns. The Browns haven't been favored. This would be the first time in 14 games dating back to last season they're a favorite. Like their the Dolphins win total was 8.5. It was bet down to 7.5 before the season. Sportsbooks put out adjusted win totals week to week. It's now down to 4.5 for the over-under, which is tied with the Jets and the Saints, which is not a place you want to be. The Titans are the lowest at 3.5. So things have gone wrong. And I think to add insult to injury, this offense, which you were hoping, was going to come together, you also now can't even trade Tyreek Hill, who a couple weeks ago potentially was going to be a trade target if things didn't work out. You didn't think it was going to go this badly, but obviously he's injured now. So everything just has kind of gone as poorly as it could have. And after this week, they also have at Falcons, Ravens, Bills, Commanders. So players only meeting, not players only meeting. It's somewhat irrelevant. The season isn't going to go well. I thought it was also interesting. It's too bad it isn't going well, because I don't know if you've seen this, Frank or Andrew. The Dolphins, I don't know if I've ever seen this. They have 4 straight home games in a row with a bye there. So
Wow.
they're like at home for basically, 4 or 5 weeks. Now it's not going to matter depending on the record.
They can turn it around.
But if things were,
if
things were a little better, they'd have a chance. But it's hard to see with that offense. So sorry, Andrew, I took up a lot of time there. I'll let you respond to Frank. But there's a lot going on.
You didn't. I mean, my eyes, their defense is the biggest issue. They're giving up 400 yards a game. I mean, the Chargers, with their 5th offensive tackle and their 3rd running back, ran for 140 yards. And it was chunk play after chunk play after chunk play on the ground. So, I mean, these defensive stats are just gross. It's the defense as much as the offense.
They're absolutely terrible.
Yeah. So let's get back to what Frank said here. Frank, a lot of you and I actually agree on a lot of things here. Number one, with the NFL media, or really with anyone in the sports media, we want candor, we want transparency, we love honest answers. And then sometimes when you get the honest answer, you go, whoa.
Yeah,
I don't know that you should be saying
make a segment
that.
Out of this.
Are you sure? Right. Are you throwing people under the bus? I don't think that's what this is. However, because like you, when I'm flying home on Sunday night after calling Brown Steelers and I see these comments, my first reaction was, you know what? It's 2 of the bad cop. He's calling people out. He needs more from his team. But then my opinion changed, and it changed because, as I said before, every single former player I know in the media, regardless of the form, has gone on the air and said, this is bad. This is bad. You don't do it, dude.
Would they be saying that about Patrick Mahomes? If Patrick Mahomes came, let's just say when they were 2 and 3,
Mahomes has the rings.
I get that,
it's
but at the same time, you want your quarterback to be. Yes, and Tua should stand up there and say, "It starts with me." I'll say that He should stand up there and say, "Guys aren't showing up, but it starts with me. I'm not playing well enough." And he has taken that accountability. But if Patrick Mahomes, when they were 2 and 3, went up on the podium and said, "You know what, guys, got to pull their heads out of their behinds around here. We're not doing the extra mile. We're not doing enough." You know what the NFL media would do? Good job, Patrick. That's the way to fire up your team. That's the way to get them going.
But you can't compare the two. They're both compensated well, but one's won and one hasn't. One has rings and the other one does not.
I don't think that should matter. I don't think it should matter as much.
No, it does matter. It absolutely, in my opinion, does matter. The other thing here, and this has been pointed out to me by a couple of former players, some of them off the air, by the way, is that now, during open locker room, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, after this coming game Sunday as well, regardless of the outcome in that game. And by the way, it's supposed to pour all day in Cleveland. Plan accordingly. The questions will be, hey, did you go to this players only film session?
Yeah, right.
Did you go to this? Who's he talking about? When Tua gets asked, and he did today, to list the other leaders that he thinks are pulling their weight, and he lists names. If he doesn't list the entire 53, is he sending a message by omission of certain names? You've opened up a can of worms. The toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever old man analogy you want to use, that you can't undo at this point. You can't undo unless you take advantage of that home schedule and all of a sudden start winning games, which there's no evidence that is going to happen. So it's you. In my opinion, you blew it. And as he said, in the heat of the moment, I blew it. So I give him credit for that, and I want to show him grace for his apology. But like I said, in all of our relationships,
Andrew, real quick,
we've done apologies where we've thrown in that one little line to say, but really, you just
really,
took
it's not
it
my
the
fault.
wrong way.
Why should we be focusing more on Tua saying this than what he was saying it about? Why isn't the reaction, whoa, the Dolphins are 1-5 and guys are skipping extra meetings? Like, why isn't that the reaction? Why are the Dolphins never accountable for anything? The Dolphins are missing meetings.
Already been done the last few weeks.
It should be done again.
That already has been a story.
It's
now he
awful,
came out
awful locker room
and made it worse.
I think also
fine with Tua calling people out. I'm fine with Tua people calling people out.
He's
the leader of that team. He's got the C.
The buck should stop with the quarterback, right? So he threw for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions, and then people are showing up late and doing all this, he can say, I've done everything I'm doing.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
one thing. Also, on another team, none of this gets out anyway. He just said the defense plays terribly, whatever. The quarterback takes accountability. I'm the leader of the team. We didn't play well enough as a team. We'll do better next time. So not only is Tua not playing well enough, he also is kind of calling teammates out through the media, which they're not going to appreciate. And he hasn't played that well, and he has a little bit of a handicap, can't run as much because of the concussion history, injury history. So there's a lot there. I just think none of it probably should have come out anyway. And it's what happens on bad losing teams where people are frustrated.
Exactly. I mean, that sums it up. It's what happens on bad teams when you're frustrated. And how many times have we seen coaches get fired or teams' seasons go down the drain? And you say, well, you know what? At least they kept it together and there wasn't a lot of finger pointing. You can't say that here, unfortunately. And might it all have been different if a rookie defensive back had tackled Ladd McConkey in space and they'd gotten off the field, won the game? Yeah, this wouldn't be a story. But when those things do happen, and then when Cameron Dicker hits the game-winning field goal, and you lose again, and you realize, hey, look, we got Devon Achane, we have Darren Waller, and we have Jalen Waddle. We're actually putting up points, but we can't stop anybody, and it's just ugly. All of this stuff adds up.